You know what's wild? The most exhausted people I've ever come across weren't the ones who gave up on themselves. They were the ones who never stopped working on themselves. There's a person right now, maybe you know them, maybe you are them, who wakes up at 5 a.m., journals, meditates, reads 10 pages, cold showers, tracks their macros, schedules their week, reviews their goals, takes 3 online courses simultaneously, and still goes to bed at night feeling like they haven't done enough. That's not discipline. That's something else entirely. And today, we need to talk about it. Welcome back. Today's video is going to feel a little different because I'm not here to hand you a morning routine or a 5-step formula. I'm here to ask a question that doesn't get asked nearly enough in this space. What if the way you're trying to improve yourself is actually making things worse? Not because growth is bad. Growth is genuinely beautiful. But because there's a version of self-improvement that quietly flips on you. It starts as ambition, and somewhere down the road, without you even noticing, it becomes ammunition against yourself. Let's get into it. Part 1. The self-help trap. Nobody warns you about. So here's the thing about the self-improvement industry. And yes, it is an industry. It's worth over $40 billion globally. Billion. With a B. Which means there are a lot of very smart people whose job it is to make sure you always feel like you're almost there. Not broken beyond repair, just broken enough to buy the next book. Download the next app. Enroll in the next course. It's the perfect business model, honestly. You sell someone a ladder, and every rung they climb, you quietly raise the ceiling. And the worst part? We don't blame the industry half as much as we should. We blame ourselves. I just need more discipline. I'm not consistent enough. I keep self-sabotaging. Sound familiar? Here's a thought. What if the issue isn't that you're failing at self-improvement? What if self-improvement, the way it's being sold to you, is failing you? Part 2. Toxic productivity. When busyness becomes identity. There's a concept researchers have started calling toxic productivity. And it's exactly what it sounds like. The point where being productive stops being a tool and starts being a personality. When you feel guilty for resting. When a slow Sunday afternoon feels like a crime. When you can't watch a movie without simultaneously feeling like you should be doing something more useful. That guilt, that low-grade anxiety that hums under the surface even on your days off. That's not drive. That's not ambition. That's a nervous system that has been trained to associate rest with failure. And here's where it gets psychologically interesting. Because what's actually happening underneath all of that hustle is a belief. A quiet, persistent belief that you are not, right now, as you are, enough. The productivity isn't the problem. The belief underneath it is. All the journaling, all the habit tracking, all the self-optimization, when it comes from that belief, it's not really about growth. It's about fixing something you've decided is broken. You, specifically, you. Part 3. The self-help addiction. Nobody talks about. Let me ask you something. Have you ever finished a self-help book, felt genuinely inspired, made some changes, and then 3 weeks later found yourself picking up another self-help book? Because somehow the inspiration ran out. That cycle, consume, feel better, deflate, consume again. That's not learning. That's a loop. Researchers actually refer to this as self-help addiction. It mimics the same pattern as other feel-good loops. Short-term relief, temporary elevation, followed by a return to that baseline feeling of not quite enoughness that sent you to the book in the first place. The books aren't filling the gap. They're just briefly distracting you from it. And again, I want to be clear. There is nothing wrong with reading, learning, growing, stretching yourself. That stuff is genuinely valuable. The problem is when you're using growth as a way to run away from yourself rather than toward a life you actually want. There's a difference, and most people have never stopped long enough to figure out which one they're doing. Part 4. Self-improvement. As sophisticated self-rejection. Okay, this is the part I really want you to sit with. What if self-improvement, the relentless, never-satisfied kind, is actually one of the most socially acceptable forms of self-rejection? Think about it. If you walked up to a friend and said, "You're lazy, you're behind, you're not doing enough, you're wasting your potential," they'd probably walk away. That's not friendship. That's cruelty. But if you say it to yourself, under the banner of high standards and growth mindset, somehow that becomes virtuous. Somehow that becomes admirable. We've taken self-criticism, dressed it up in motivational language, and convinced ourselves it's self-improvement. It's not. It's the same voice, just wearing a blazer now. The constant reaching, the never arriving, the moving of goalposts. That's not someone who loves themselves and wants to grow. That's someone who fundamentally doesn't feel okay about who they already are, trying to optimize their way out of that feeling. And you cannot optimize your way out of that feeling, I promise you. Because the optimization was never the point. The feeling was always the point. Part 5. What positive psychology actually says now. Here's where things get genuinely interesting. Because real psychological research doesn't actually support the "I'm broken, fix me" model of growth. Martin Seligman, who basically founded positive psychology, spent years studying what actually makes people thrive. Not just function, but genuinely flourish. And what he found wasn't that people need to work harder on their weaknesses. It was that people flourish when they lean into their strengths, operate from a place of meaning, and feel fundamentally okay about who they are while they're growing. That last part is key. While they're growing, not after they've achieved enough, not once they've fixed all the broken parts. Right now. As they are. Carol Dweck, you've probably heard of the growth mindset. Her research is often cited to mean always push harder, never settle. But that's actually a misreading. Her research says that people with a growth mindset believe they can develop. It says nothing about hating where you currently are. In fact, her findings suggest that psychological safety, feeling okay about your current state, is what makes real learning possible. You grow better from security than you do from fear. Read that again. You grow better from security than you do from fear. Part 6. The reframe. Growth from wholeness. So here's the shift I want to offer you today. Not a system, not a framework, just a question to carry with you. Are you improving yourself because you love yourself? Or despite yourself? Because those lead to very different places. When you work out because you love what your body can do, you're consistent, you enjoy it, it becomes part of who you are. When you work out because you hate how you look right now, it's a punishment. And punishments eventually get avoided, or resented, or turned into obsessions. When you learn a new skill because you're genuinely curious, it energizes you. When you learn it because you feel like you're falling behind, it exhausts you. Same actions. Completely different relationship to yourself underneath. True self-improvement, the kind that actually sticks, the kind that builds a life rather than just a performance of a life, starts with a decision that almost sounds counterintuitive. You're worth improving, not because you're broken, not because you're behind, but because you matter enough to invest in, because your life is worth showing up for. Because growth, when it comes from that place, isn't about fixing something wrong. It's about expanding something that's already real. The actual takeaway. I'll leave you with this. Somewhere along the way, we collectively decided that the best way to motivate people was to make them feel bad about where they are. That shame was a good engine. That dissatisfaction was productivity's best friend. But shame doesn't build things. It just burns them. The people who sustain real growth, who genuinely change, not just perform change for their Instagram. They're not running from themselves. They're running towards something, and they feel, on some level, that they deserve to get there. That's it. That's the whole thing. You don't need a better morning routine. You don't need another book. You don't need to optimize your way into being worthy of your own care. You're allowed to grow because you're worth growing, not because you're broken and need to be fixed. Work on yourself because you love yourself, not despite yourself. Take care of yourselves. I mean that.
See you in the next one.